I would like to call to order the meeting of the Glendora City Council for Tuesday, June 11th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Let the record show that all council members are present. For the audience here tonight, the city of Glendora utilizes a hybrid meeting format, allowing participation both in person and virtually. If you're in the audience in consideration of others, please silence your cell phones and refrain from speaking unless recognized. I already announced who is here. At this point, I will ask the city attorney to read us into closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and any who may be joining us virtually. City Council has a very busy closed session with a number of items on its agenda tonight, which I will identify for the benefit of the public as follows. There will be 2 items involving real property negotiations pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The first involves a series of surplus properties who are identified by their corrected assessor parcel numbers in the city's online posting of the agenda. The second closed session involves the so-called Dale Road property, also identified by its assessor parcel number. There will be a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4 because the city will be considering whether to initiate litigation in one case. There will be a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2 or D3 and E4 to consider the claims of several claimants whose identity are included in the closed session agenda. And there will finally be a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 or D3 and E1 because there is a significant exposure to litigation in one case. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Bill. With that, I will go ahead and open public comment. I can see that there's no one here in person wishing to speak on public comment. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
No, Mayor, we do not.
Okay, with that, I'll close public comment and I will recess us into closed session at 5:02. I will go ahead and call our city council meeting for the evening of July 11th, 2023 back in session. And I'm going to ask the city attorney to read us out a closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen. As noted, the council had a busy closed session tonight with a number of items on the agenda, about which I will now provide a report. With respect to closed session agenda, item number 1 involving real property negotiations, including certain surplus properties that the city is considering disposition of the same. Those properties and their corrected assessor parcel numbers are identified in the online city council agenda. There was a privileged and confidential briefing by staff. Questions were asked and answered. Further negotiating direction was provided, but no reportable action was taken. The same is also true with respect to the second closed session agenda item involving the so-called Dale Road property, whose assessor parcel number is likewise printed in the city's online agenda. There was a privileged and confidential briefing on the ongoing events necessary to close that escrow and complete the purchase and sale transaction. Questions were asked and answered. And a status report was provided by staff, but no reportable action was taken. With respect to agenda item number 3, the city council is considering whether to initiate litigation in one case. Again, a privileged and confidential briefing was provided regarding the facts and circumstances which may require the city to initiate litigation. Ongoing investigation and research was directed by the city council. Questions were asked and answered, but again, no reportable action was taken. With respect to closed session agenda item number 4, the city council considered the claims of the individuals identified in this closed session agenda. They were advised that the city's third-party administrator has recommended rejecting these claims, and the council concurred in the determination of its third-party administrator. And finally, there was a discussion about facts and circumstances which could give rise to exposure to litigation in one case. The city attorney provided a privileged and confidential briefing. There was an opportunity to enter into a tolling and confidentiality agreement, and the city council unanimously approved entering into such agreement, provided there were necessary changes made to the agreement, which will be forwarded to the prospective plaintiff for further review and consideration. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Bill. With that leads us to our invocation and pledge of allegiance. I don't see Rio Martinez here tonight. So if I could ask, it's always nice to have a reverend on the sitting at your right hand, to ask the Reverend Karen Davis to lead us in an invocation, followed by the pledge of allegiance led by Ian Lawrence. If everyone would please stand.
Let us join together in prayer. God of all people and all places, and this month in which we celebrate our nation's independence and freedom, we are thankful for those who have defended our liberties and rights, those who've made the ultimate sacrifice, and those who today stand in harm's way, both around the world and on our city streets. We pray that we would make good use of our freedoms and liberties, that we would be good citizens in defending our democracy. We ask your blessing on our meeting tonight, and may you continue to watch over your people and care for them. This we ask in your name. Amen.
Ian?
Haven't done this since elementary school, but I think you'll know the drill. Okay. Please stay with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this point, does anyone wish to reorder the agenda? Any items? Nope. Okay. then I will go ahead and open public comment. Invite members of the public to address the city council. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes, speaking once this evening, both on and off agenda items. If you're in attendance, please fill out one of the yellow cards and hand it to the city clerk. And once recognized, we'll call you up, come up to the podium and state your name and tell us what's on your mind. If you're participating via Zoom, use the raised hand icon on your Zoom screen, and you'll be called on as soon as everybody is done this here in person. So for tonight, we're going to start out with Evelyn Jarvie.
Mayor Boyer, we seem to be having some technical issues with the timer, so I'll be using my phone for the 3 minutes. So a timer will go off when we hit the 3-minute point.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Evelyn.
Hi. I have an idea I'd like to run by you. I noticed that a few years ago you made a declaration to celebrate Pride in the month of June. My idea is we only celebrate veterans for one day in the month of November. Why can't we expand it to the whole month? I know Thanksgiving is in the month of November, but this would make a great way to show thanks to them. If the shops agree, I'd like to put in donation links to organizations that help veterans with physical and mental health needs. If I can, I would like to make flyers with links that can be handed out in stores. Thank you for your consideration of my proposal.
Okay, thank you, Evelyn. That's a great idea. Okay, next up, I've got Marcia Uros. Marcia, welcome.
Mayor Boyer, council members and staff. As you know, I'm Marcia Yaros, living in Glendora since 1991. And I am an observer of the Glendora City Council for the League of Women Voters. This will be the 3-minute, as close as I can, abbreviated summary of my observer report for the period from Valentine's Day until May 23rd. I was present at 6 of the 9 meetings held during that period of time and reviewed the meeting minutes of the others. The city council and staff members appear to be very knowledgeable and professional. All council members have attended these meetings and appeared fully engaged throughout. Public comment sessions are consistently held with members of the public treated respectfully. Oral vote polls are taken and recorded on all city council motions. Interestingly, nearly all have been adopted by 5-0 unanimous votes. Significant issues covered during the reporting period: outdoor dining permit fees for the Glendora Village BID. Council members listened attentively to numerous negative public comments and modified the staff recommendations on the amount and timing of these fees in response to public comments, and the fees were reduced. In addition, establishment of an antique streetlight assessment district was proposed with adoption dependent on the vote by affected property owners. Purchase of a former senior assisted living facility intended for assisting with the development of attainable housing has been affected. A frequent topic is public safety, including concerns regarding homeless encampments and cleanups. There have also been concerns voiced over the maintenance of local character and historical community values. This has been also in terms of the pending opening of Glendora's Metro Gold Line light rail station. I also attended about half of the full-day strategic planning meeting held in March, and I was impressed by the commitment demonstrated to candid and productive discussion. One interesting point, the vision statement was revised after several motions to the city of Glendora. Strives to maintain our distinct sense of community values that fosters an environment of innovation, resiliency, safety, sustainability, and inspiration for everyone. What was of note was after several motions, inclusive was dropped. I apologize, I couldn't see the timing. I'll leave it there, but I've been very much
Anybody
impressed.
object to allowing Marcia to complete your report? Can you wrap it up in less than 2 minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes, basically, there's been issues coming before the city. I find the Glendora City Council to be demonstrating good governance in a transparent and efficient manner, responsive to residents' interests, balanced with conformance to state and federal requirements. Thank you for your kind attention.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Okay, do I have other card?
It's just the ones that you have, and then we also have a Zoom participant as well
okay.
for public comment. Can you unmute yourself, Jace? Jace, you
Hello.
have 5 minutes.
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. I am the business owner at Arco MPM in Glendora on Grand and Foothill. I have a complaint about the Ethan trash services. You know, I feel like nobody is listening our complaints. I try to reach the city, someone, nobody answered. And same thing, I try to call the Ethan services many times. I see my bill is keep increasing and they are keep putting late fees over late fees. So I don't know what to do. I try to reach city, I try to call them. I even like did my service for 2 days, but every time I pay the late fees, they put another late fees on that or the extra charges for the Ethan trash services. That's all I have to say. I need some help who can really, you know, address this problem with Athens.
Okay, are you finished?
Yes,
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Could we maybe communicate with her via chat to get contact information so follow-up can happen?
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, okay, we will do that.
And Mayor Boyer, we also received one correspondence via email. It was incorporated in the agenda packet distributed to council and made available to the public.
Okay, I appreciate it. And I have to ask, just because when I was talking to Ian, he had a public comment card did you turn in a card?
So we have 3 more public comment cards, and those are going to be for agenda item 16.
We won't have an individual public comment on that. So if they want to come out now.
Yeah, we have that public comment now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, Ian, we'll start with you. Ian Lawrence.
When I show up around here, people already know what it's about.
Well-
So I'll try to keep it short. I had a long winded speech about Penn Station in New York and how that started a historic preservation thing and across the country and how 70 years later, people still talk about it. I don't think our lights are quite that dramatic, but I do think that's something we have to take seriously. There's still some confusion. The measure that came before people, a yes vote meant ripping them out. A no vote apparently means ripping them out. So the idea if they got ripped out or not was not really up for democratic debate. I was part of the ad hoc committee and we had people in there that wanted to spend almost anything, people that didn't want to spend a dime. The one thing we all agreed on is that we wanted to keep the original lights. And that was taken out of the measure that went up for vote. So we never had that choice. And I know many of my neighbors voted no because they said, I don't want to rip these out to put fake lights, made of fiberglass or as I mentioned earlier, one neighbor here said that that would be like creating Disneyland, and Glendora is not Disneyland. Because the reason we love those lights is because they are original, because they are authentic, because it makes our neighborhood look cohesive. It makes it look like just not another generic LA suburb. I mean, it makes Glendora special. It's part of the heart of the city. Now, there were no money lying around. I would say, okay, it's tough. I get it. But there's $1.5 million from Sacramento to save these things. We need to keep them in place. I mean, if we can somehow use them somewhere else, that's a little bit better. But the idea that what makes them important is that they're authentic, they're real, they're original, and we have some money to at least keep them in place, even if they're not lit. I mean, I invite you to please drive up Vista Bonita. They are so beautiful. Or right in front of the Councilwoman's church. I mean, they're up and down Bennett. They are so beautiful, even not lit. There are better options than ripping them out, putting them in some yard where they may or may not survive. Who knows what's going to happen? Who knows where they're going to be? This is not a good thing to rush into. Let's slow down, find more options. I mean, we keep getting these things dropped down and oh, now they're being torn out. Oh, now that's been taken out of the initiative. That's not even what you're voting for anymore. We've constantly been getting caught off guard. Give us time to figure out better options from the community too. I mean, there are other things out there. This is not the way to do it. These lights deserve better. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Next I got Susan Kramer. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you. My family came to Glendora in 1924, well, actually 23, and we've been here a very, very long time. And I think part of what makes Glendora special, what's going to make people getting off the metro and walking downtown, is it doesn't look like all the other towns. It's kept its character. It's kept its depth. And I think if we start pulling out old things and throwing them away, we're going to move down the way and we're not going to be able to recapture them. And if you put in something that's fiberglass, it's not going to last 100 years. And these are still standing and they're still viable. So I think that we have to be really careful when we decide to rip these out and get rid of them. And I would beg you to think deeply about just tearing them out and getting rid of them. I think they're part of Glendora. I think they're essential to Glendora. And I think part of its character is wrapped up in the old parts of Glendora. If you go to the museum, there's things in there. My brother's box that has the bell of the last Glendora fire truck. You know, we need to keep it. The kids need it. We need it. So I beg you to think seriously about tearing them out.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. Okay, I've got one other card to talk about the antique street lights, but there's no name on it. So, okay, please come on up and.
Hi. My name is Craig Woods. I'm the president of the Glendora Historical Society, and I sympathize with this position that everybody is put in by these lies. You have a lot of emotions on both sides of the fence. And I've come to offer at the Historical Society, we've had a very similar situation in the last 5 years, and we've kind of come through it by committing to getting an assessment by professional in the historical architects that are professionals and specialize in how to preserve and maintain historic artifacts. And what we had to do to get there was admit that we didn't know what we were doing. We have a lot of people who care about Rubel Castle and want to fix it and work on do their things, but they're very successful business people and such, and they know how to fix their homes and they know how to maintain their homes. But a sloppy stone castle is a different situation. And we had to admit that we really didn't know how to do that. And so after we did that, we committed funds to having it assessed by experts. And that kind of it's kind of like surrendering to a doctor when you're sick or when your is sick, and you let the experts take a look at things and give their best advice. So I'm here to offer my help if you need it, if you want it. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. And I got Esther Koski. Welcome, Esther.
Hi, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say with a smile, thank you for your time. I also want to speak on the antique lights. I had the opportunity to participate on the ad hoc committee as well, along with Ian. And I was in favor. I voted in favor of the antique lights. I want to thank the city staff for all the hard work that they actually put into everything and the recommendations that we have participated in with the community that was there. I live on North Glendora Avenue, and so I see the lights. It is an extension of the village, and I do appreciate the village the way it is. I think one of the things that's really charming about our village currently is the fact that we have kind of some old-fashioned music playing, you know, and so when people walk around, they kind of have this sense of relaxation, kind of happiness. I think on the last meeting that we had where the vote came up, somebody said, this isn't Disneyland. I was thinking in my head, yeah, no, it's not Disneyland, but come on. What's wrong with Disneyland? It's people say it's the happiest place on earth, right? And why can't Glendora be like the happiest place on earth? Does it really have to come down to, well, we voted on this 3 times, and well, it hasn't worked in the past, and well, this, and this. And I've talked to a lot of community members and a lot of people who were in favor of it. So I thought personally that it was actually going to pass. I mean, again, we kind of split up streets. You know, some of us took different streets. I took Glendora Avenue with Patrick, and continue to stay in contact with some of the neighbors who were in favor. Some people who have been here for a very long time, back when the lights were on, they absolutely loved it for the romance of it. And we're talking about seniors who also have a monthly budget, an annual budget, and he was willing. One of the members that we talked to, one of the families that we talked to said, yes, whatever it is, yes, turn the lights back on. I don't care how much it costs. And so it really gave me kind of that happiness, like, oh yeah, people do care about it. So I was surprised when we got the no vote, and I was actually a little disheartened because I feel like it brings us a sense of community. And one of the things, again, going back to the music in Glendora, we feel good about it, right? Why do we feel good about it? Because it makes you feel like there's just some type of value there. There's charm there. It makes you feel good to walk around and feel like there's some sense of old fashioned about our village. And so I feel the same way about the lights. And I know Ian has pointed out that our lights are even represented kind of in the very beginning in 1911 on the symbol that we have there. I wanted to say quickly, I don't know how much time I have, that when I first moved into my home 3 years ago, we spent the night, we couldn't wait for the lights to turn on, and they never turned on. And so I was really sad about it. And so my next thing I wrote down, just please don't remove the lights. Please don't just rip them out. These are historical. They're awesome. They're cool looking, even in the daytime. The last meeting that we had, one of the former ad hoc members here who voted no, who was against the lights, I remember her comment, even though I wasn't here. She said, we don't have to take out the lights. They're beautiful during the daytime. So like Ian says, one of the things that we all agree on is the fact that the lights are pretty cool. Please don't rip out the lights. Also, the vote itself, I kind of think that when we got the vote, I knew from watching the meetings that there were some suggestions to remove the lights this time. And I understand it does take staff time, et cetera, to be looking at these lights, and it costs money to do this. And I know we've done it several times, but I think the vote ballot was actually unclear. If people had to have watched the actual meeting to know that the lights were going to come out if they voted no. And I think if more people actually knew, hey, it really comes down to, it's either yes or we're taking the lights out, they probably would have thought a little bit more before they voted no. I think it was just a thing where people were probably like, oh, the city needs to do the XYZ and we shouldn't have to pay for it. If they knew that we were taking out the lights, I think people would have thought twice. So please think twice about taking the lights out. I love them during the day. If there's anything that we can do to do some type of retrofit, or if staff can consider doing a retrofit for solar, maybe that's an option.
Okay, thank you, Esther.
Thank you.
By the way, that old fashioned music, that's Mendel and my music. We don't think it's old fashioned. We think it's cool.
I'm an old person at heart, so I like the old stuff. I love vintage, anything with character.
Okay, do we have anyone else wishing to speak? I don't have any other cards.
No, we do not, Mayor.
Okay, with that, I will go ahead and close public comment. I do want to, before we move on, again, we'll be talking about the historic streetlights here in a little bit, but Eleanor? if I could get you to come up here real quick. I want to give you my business card. And you have your mom contact me because I like your idea. It may or may not be a city project, but there are other ways to fulfill what you were talking about. I'd like to talk to you further about it, okay? Okay, thank you. Okay, where are we at? I will go ahead and close the public comment period, and then I'll bring it back to council for statements and comments. Who wants to start? David's pushing the button. Go for it.
Actually, I have no report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's short and sweet. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out to both PD and the fire department because on July 4th, as most of you know, we had a fire in the South Hills. I could hear the chainsaws from my backyard as fire was clearing a path, and have been up there since and seen the amazing job they did at holding that fire back. So thank you to everyone for the quick work and taking good care of that property. And hopefully, as we were warned ahead of time, this will be a very good reminder that fire season is upon us. So please be smart. Don't start fires. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Michael?
So Marcia, did we get an A?
You can feel free to grade them individually too. It's totally okay. Yeah.
I feel the love. Mr. Randazzo, Captain, want to come on up? Introduce yourself to the public since you're now have rose through the ranks. Since we did a little private ceremony the other night, it would be kind of nice to introduce yourself to the community.
Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, we had a ceremony yesterday. I was sworn in as a police captain at the police department. So everybody here was present. So I'll be at the police department. I'm in charge of operations right now, which includes patrol and most of the uniform presence that you see. So hello, and now you can put a name to the face. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, Captain. That's all.
Is it Mendel?
Marcia, thank you for your update. You have been here a lot, and we do appreciate the thoughts that you gave, and thankful that you reflected those, and the public needs to know that. It's scary to come here, and I just think it's good that you felt like that we were kind and thoughtful and respectful, and that's what we try to be. And so thank you for your update. I would like to echo Kieran's thought. It is hot, and with the hot and with the wetness that we've had, fire is right around every corner. So I hope that we are attentive to that. And since it's hot, we know that a lot of people are going to swim. And I would encourage us all to be attentive, especially to our kids who can wander out and dive in, and we never know it. We've recently had a rescue here in town of a young man that was in fifth grade, and it was only because of the attentiveness of those that were watching the pool that he is still here. And so summer is great. It's a wonderful time, and if you have a pool, it's wonderful to swim. But I think we would all say be aware because things can happen fast. The goal line continues to go well. I don't think there's a lot of construction stuff that's going on that prevents us from being able to travel. But rest assured, it's coming along well. It's supposed to be done on 1/5/25. So that sounds like it's a long time, but it's 18 months, and it'll be done. So thankfully, you've all been kind, and with all of the trucks and everything. So with that, that's all.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks, Mendel. We got a few things. First off, over the 4th of July, we held our annual Field of Heroes program, both here at City Hall, the display of American flags at City Hall, and down at Sunflower School. I want to give a shout out to the Rotary Club and thank the city of Glendora and Charter Oak for allowing the Rotary to create that display every year. I want to especially acknowledge this year it was we had the privilege of we actually had two of our local Congress members that were going to attend and speak at our opening ceremony, Grace Napolitano and Judy Chu. Unfortunately, Grace had a bit of a fall earlier in the week and was not able to join us in person, but Judy was there and gave a lot of words of encouragement, and we really appreciate her participation. Also want to acknowledge we've got a group that's actually out of Covina, the Champion Foundation, that's always supportive. And this year we actually had a group that's located here in town, the Sheet Metal Workers Union 105. Their headquarters are here in the city of Glendora, and they have a group they call the Smart Army of volunteers that they come out and help with that. And so we had a large group of young, very healthy and strong sheet metal workers come to help us pound all the stakes and everything into the ground. So that really was appreciated. So on another note, Karen and I had the honor of attending a breakfast, again, sponsored by Congresswoman Napolitano, to recognize first responders. And locally, we had a fire captain from station number 85, Mario Nadavad. He was recognized by the Congresswoman, as well as Glendora's own officer, Steve Gonzalez, who's been an officer here in the city of Glendora since 2014. We've had a lot of feedback lately on code enforcement. And one of the subjects that has been very prominent is the old Custer Christensen mortuary down on Route 66, where the weeds have gotten a bit out of control and things that it's privately owned. But I was going to ask Adam if you could maybe give us a little bit of an update. We know when we see code enforcement issues, it's one thing to deal with them, but there's a process that we have to go through. So it's not immediately resolved. If you could just give it a little bit of an update of what that
Happy to do
process might
so.
be.
So you'll hear from briefly Mark Archibald, our sports services manager, who's back there, and Captain Stabio on another issue. But their group is responsible for addressing code enforcement issues. And so as much as the public would like us just to go out there and fix an issue right away, certain protocols and procedures we have to go through, including a warning and then noticing and then citations to that process, and it's cleaned up and it starts over again. So the mortuary in specific is prominent in its location in town, and so people drive by and see it. It's been vacant since 2007. There was a previous approval in 2009, and I think a consideration in 2011 to do an event center there. And for a myriad of reasons, that never occurred. And so we've had this constant state back and forth. And so while we've had 6 or 7 cases with them, they end up being resolved and cleaned up. And it's just sometimes it takes longer than others. On a similar note, we've recently had complaints off of Gladstone behind Sam's Club. And so Mark and his staff back there have done a tremendous job, actually gone into Sam's Club, talked to the store managers. We'll be talking to a regional manager tomorrow. And so it rained a lot. There's a lot of cracks in town, and so there's a lot of weeds growing in places we didn't know we could grow weeds. Staff, believe it or not, does address those and is trying to. Most importantly, though, Mayor, if you see something, say something, let us know. For as much as we're out and about, sometimes we bypass something. So we're on it. We're working on it. If you want details, we tell you it's an open code case. It's because we've reached out to the property owner and are currently addressing it. We wish we could provide you all the details in the world, but sometimes those are privileged until a case is closed. So appreciate your patience. We want it cleaned up just as much as you do.
And
thank you.
And another location that's very prominent is a restaurant location down on South Grand Avenue that has been a long.
So I'm happy to report on that. That we have issued a permit for a demolition. The property owner is working with Edison to turn off the power, which is an underground location. So Edison gave a timeline of 3 to 4 months, which after making contact, we're expediting. We know it's an issue. The property owner knows it's an issue. At this point, we're waiting on an agency that we have no control over. So if anyone has control over Edison, please let us know. Other than that, that's a great topic as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I appreciate it. And then tonight, I'm going to ask that we close our meeting in memory of Tom Hill. Tom passed away a little over a month ago, and we chose to wait until tonight to close the meeting in memory of Tom. partly because of his passion and involvement in the library and supporting the library, and the fact that this Saturday night, the library is holding their annual major fundraiser for, not the library, but the Friends Foundation, of which Tom was a member, is holding their annual Night on the Plaza that will be held out here at City Hall. And I think tickets are still available. So if anybody would like to join that, it's a great event, but make sure and be there. But Tom was an amazing supporter of the library. But just real quickly, Tom actually liked to tell the story that he was almost born in the back of a hearse. And if you ever heard a story from Tom, they have a tendency to have a twist, and he goes on to tell that he was born in a town that was so small. The ambulance that took him to the hospital, took his mom to the hospital, also doubled as a hearse, and he barely got to the hospital before she gave birth. So I was up in Wyoming. Tom was a DJ in high school, and music was a passion of his. He spent years in theater as a student actor and director. He was hired at Citrus College in 1974, where he met his wife, Cheryl, and they eventually got married in 1983. Tom was very involved in a lot of things in the community, including the Sister City program, IDOS, which is an organization that helps the visually impaired here in town. He was a proud member of the Rotary Club, and we were proud to have him as a member. As I already mentioned, his involvement in the Library Friends Foundation. And Tom is most well known as being Mr. Trivia, as the MC of our trivia challenge for, I think, 30 years, Janet? Almost 30 years. So, and Tom will definitely be missed. They're big shoes to fill, but I am asking that we adjourn our meeting in memory of Tom tonight and remember him and his family. With that, we have anything else? Adam?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call up Mark Archibald and Captain Stabio to give a brief update on PFOL. As you may know, a couple meetings ago, we had lots of people asking questions, and while we don't have a full agenda item for you this evening, we do have an update on a potential census or count and sort of some research that we're doing and a timeline for all of you to consider. So, Mark, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and City Manager. I'm here this evening to give a broad overview on the PFOL in our city. We'll be back on the 22nd City Council meeting to deliver more thorough analysis of the PFOL, as well as address any questions that may arise from this evening. PFOL are classified as non-domestic feral animals. As such, it is unlawful to feed them. In 2022, the city posted signage prohibiting the feeding of PFOL. These signs are in line with the Glendora as well as LA County municipal codes. Both codes carry fines from monetary to time in county jail. These signs are located at Leodora and Glendora, Sierra Madre and Glendora, Sierra Madre and Vermont, Vermont and Leodora, Live Oak and Huerta Verde. We've also reached out to a commonly used trapping vendor from other cities that we could explain later to better understand their process, where the birds are taken, and the costs associated with such services. South Pasadena has taken an aggressive approach to PFOL management. Through City Council approval, all PFOL were humanely trapped and relocated within a 2-month period. La Cañada Flint Ridge's PFOL plan embraces a more moderate approach and calls for the annual census of the PFOL flock to determine the population. If the flock exceeds 9 birds, the city will trap and relocate a portion of the flock. PFOL are in the DNA of Arcadia. They are protected and no actions are taken to minimize the flock within their city. It is important to note that the course of action directed by council may be affected by the general life cycle of PFOL. Generally, the nesting and hatching season takes place during April, May, when chicks flock with their peahen before being able to function on their own. This is not a humane period to conduct trapping of peahen. Therefore, seasonal trapping of females should take place July 15th through December 31st. Males may be trapped year-round. A PFOL census has never been completed in the city of Glendora. IVHS did some directed patrols within the past month, making note of the number of PFOL encountered, and are working to find a path forward with a comprehensive census. We will return with an agenda item on the 22nd of August City Council meeting.
This agenda item will be seeking city council action with options for a plan. This concludes my brief. Any questions, please?
Okay, thanks, Mark. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so just to be clear, did Inland Valley, have they already done the count or they're in the process of working on how to do the account?
They did a high level patrol. It's not a full census.
Okay,
They did not do a full census. It's much more involved to get a comprehensive census. So we're working with them and it's an ongoing process and I'll certainly come back on the 22nd of August and explain further.
okay, so right now we don't know how to do a count of the PFAL.
We're working through that.
Okay,
There are other cities that have successfully obtained them and we look to do the same. That's our ultimate goal as well.
okay, just wanted to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Part of the difficulty in getting an accurate census is the man hours that would be required to do that. It's kind of like trying to figure out how many feral cats we have in the city. It's not that it can't be done, but it's gonna probably require a little bit more time and intensive effort on the part of IVHS. In the sense that they're gonna have to go door to door, basically, to figure out how many PFAL we have. And there are challenges with that because you never know if you're counting the same one twice. They all look like peacocks and chickens. And so it's gonna be difficult. They can give us a estimate, but there's not gonna be a tremendous amount of accuracy to it, no matter how much time and effort they spend.
And not everyone wants us traipsing through their backyard.
Okay, appreciate the report. Thanks.
Thanks. Any other questions or?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, David, you got,
No question, but just a point in time count last Friday night, about 7 o'clock. A independent party counted 51 in a single pass through that area.
Thank you, sir. All right.
I was not counting.
okay.
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
Thanks. Anything else, Adam? Bill? No? Okay. Okay, that brings us to special items. And tonight I'd like to welcome the presiding officer from the Water Quality Association, which just happens to be the mayor of the city of Azusa, Robert Gonzalez. And I understand the executive director, Randy Schulzerman. Is that close? Okay, is also here to give us a report. Welcome, guys.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am Mayor Robert Gonzalez from the city of Azusa. And Councilman Ralowitz, you didn't lock the gate, so I'm here in the city of Glendora. If I have no PFAL, they're not going to follow me. They're not going to follow me back. So I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity. I came last year and asked to do a presentation, and thus you guys made it happen. I serve as your representative on the Water Quality Authority here in the San Gabriel Valley. And Randy Schulman is our executive director, will give you a little bit more insight on what exactly that we do. Some of you may already know, some of you may not know, but we want to give you a little bit more information for you and your residents to know that we are extremely serious about making sure that our quality of water is safe for not just Glendora, but for the region. So I'm going to turn it over to our executive director, Mr. Schulman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Gonzalez. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Glad to be here this evening to give you a little bit of insight, an overview, brief overview of our agency, San Gabriel Basin Water Quality Authority. So let me start out with a map here that shows the outline of the groundwater basin. And you may already be familiar with some of the contamination that is occurring in the groundwater. And in short, I'll just start off by saying that's the reason that our agency was created. Let me go into a little bit of the background behind this. So the contamination was first discovered in the Azusa area in 1979. That would be some volatile organic compounds, pretty typical contaminant in this area due to some defense contractors, legacy contamination that was happening in the basin here. About that time, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, who has the federal authority and oversight, came into the valley here and under the new Superfund program, investigated and found additional wells that were contaminated in the basin. In addition to the federal government being here, we had the state government coming in as the State Water Resources Control Board and the Department of Toxic Substances Control. Obviously, we have local input from cities and from water purveyors. So it was a group effort to coming together to figure out what was to be done with all the contamination that was being discovered at that time. Well, after that reporting, it came out that there was no one agency that could handle this groundwater issue. And so they decided to create the San Gabriel Basin Water Quality Authority. We opened our doors in 1993 after the state passed legislation for our Enabling Act. The board consisted originally of a 5-member board, again, just a local agency responsible for the groundwater cleanup. We don't serve water to folks. What we do is manage that groundwater cleanup only, and we work with all the water purveyors, including the cities who have their own water systems. We're a non-regulatory agency. We plan and finance treatment projects. We'll go into a little more about that. We have a groundwater quality management and remediation plan. That plan is located on our website. It contains a ton of information that if any of you are curious about, I invite you to go and check that out on our website. Detailed plans about every remedy system, if you will. It is the cleanup plan. It gives a great history of groundwater in this basin as well. So we also coordinate with all the local, state, and federal agencies, including, as I mentioned, Department of Toxics and the local regional water quality control board, as well as the State Water Resources Control Board. And we have a sunset date, which may or may not be maybe new to you. That idea of a concept that that agency that the state creates actually has a sunset date. Our latest sunset date is 2050, June 30th of 2050. The board will determine there's some things that set in motion that determines whether or not that date is extended or not. It's been extended several times. The last one was 2030. It just went to 2050. In 2000, we came a 7-member board. Let me introduce our board members to you and show you the makeup of our board, right? So we have 2 city members, city council members. Valerie Munoz from the city of La Puente represents the cities without pumping rights. You have Mayor Gonzalez here from the city of Azusa that represents you as a city with pumping rights. Then we have 3 municipal water district members. You have Ed Chavez from Upper District, Mark Paulson from the San Gabriel District, and Bob Kuhn from the Three Valleys Municipal Water District. 2 producer members, Linda Noriega from the Calamestic Water Company and Robert DePremio from the San Gabriel Valley Water Company. Some of you might be familiar with Mike Whitehead, who was also from the San Gabriel Valley Water Company, just recently retired by our board, has been replaced by Mr. DePremio. So the areas of focus of our agency, again, we facilitate this idea of cleaning up the basin. That contamination that we showed you earlier has some, the way to clean it up is divided up into areas, right? So think about it dividing up into 5 or 6 areas, and you take care of those smaller areas. It's easier to get your hands around them. So we have to coordinate with all those different agencies. EPA has project managers in each one of those different areas. There's 5 or 6 cleanup areas. And so it's a lot of coordination goes on there. Our agency was responsible for a lot of early action cleanups. When you're working with the federal government, things don't go fast. They go very slow and methodic. But with groundwater contamination, we took on a lot of early issues upon our creation that allowed us to put treatment facilities in place and stop that flow of contamination a lot sooner than it would have we just let the normal federal process take place. So those are the early actions that we were responsible for. Seek state and federal funding. I'll go into a little more about that in a couple of slides. And of course, we have a public outreach to keep the public informed about what can be a potentially concerning topic. Obviously, your groundwater has contamination in it, and 90% of your drinking water comes to ground here. But because of all the treatment systems in place, the groundwater is 100% drinkable, right? It's safe to drink. That's the message we like to get out there. And so we have our current, just 1 second here. We have legislation that has been going on. I mentioned that we extended our sunset date to July 1st of 2050. The current legislation that we have involves our assessment. We're allowed to charge an assessment per acre foot of prescriptive pumping rights. That's the right you have to pump, not necessarily, it's not the water that you actually pump. It's a prescriptive right that you have. So right now our amount is $12 an acre foot. And we haven't, it's been very consistent over the years, but we have legislation in place that will raise that allowable rate to $20 an acre foot. That rate of allowable is currently at 10. It's going to 20, but it hasn't been changed in over 20 years. So we've got legislation that will raise that to 20. Ready, sitting in the Senate, ready to be passed by the Senate. Okay, let's talk about state and federal funding I'm mentioning. We have, you can see there are some dollar amounts on that slide. Federal funding, 125 million, state funding, 60 million, responsible party funding, 700 million. I'm going to talk about, we bring in a lot of state and federal funding, but it's important to realize that the responsible parties are here. The responsible parties are paying for the majority of the cleanup. That's the way it should be. That's one of our mandates too, is we have the responsible parties pay for that cleanup, but they aren't responsible for it entirely. And so we do bring in federal funding and we do bring in state funding. Some of the federal funding comes from, we call the San Gabriel Basin Restoration Fund. And we've gotten over $80–90 million of funding from that fund. Most recently, last year, we had a round of funding that we gave out some funds. We were able to give $500,000 to the Three Valleys Municipal Water District, who is doing a study that will involve some of the city of Glendora's water system as well. I know you're looking at reactivating some of your wells that might need potential treatment. We've awarded Three Valleys that $500,000 to go towards that study that will help with studying and putting a project together to help your wells and your water supply over here. We've gotten money from Proposition 68 in particular on the state side that is funding about 21 projects here in the basin. Their operations for approximately 5 years. That was very successful. That was $33 million, and we extended that recently with another $16 or $17 million. That's just a little bit about our funding. The responsible party funding comes in place because we have agreements in place with the responsible parties in collaboration with all the other water purveyors, in collaboration with EPA and the other state agencies. That is a quick overview, and I'm available for any questions and be happy to come back with additional details about how those cleanups actually work. But tonight, I just want to give you that brief overview of what our agency is and who we are.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Randy and Robert. And anybody, any questions? No? Michael?
Just really quick, Mayor and Robert, Randy, thank you very much for the presentation. You mentioned the responsible parties. How much are they putting into this? That's the super fund, I would imagine, that you're talking about, along with federal monies. And also you want to come back to the ratepayers and basically double the fee. First off, why are we responsible for that, since it's a super fund site? And what are you gonna do with that money for the ratepayers?
Yeah, very good question. The responsible parties are only responsible for certain areas of the contamination. So some of the areas we call they're orphan sites where there are no responsible parties. That's the answer to the question on the responsible parties. The assessment itself goes to our agency's operations and to pay for some of the water treatment facilities that we have. We operate a treatment facility in the city of El Monte that treats a shallow orphan site. It's called 1,4-dioxane that threatens to get into some drinking water wells over there. Regarding the doubling of our assessment, which it sounds like, but it's really not. So what we're looking at doing is, like I said, for various reasons right now, we're at $12 an acre foot. The $20, it doesn't actually change our current existing assessment. The $20 is only gives us, it's an authorization to go up to 20 if we need it. So part of our campaign and having this legislation is letting everyone know that, look, there's emerging chemicals on the horizon, and that in case that we need to address those, We need to have the capacity to have the additional assessment. We need to have that additional assessment capacity, right? But we need legislation to go have that authorization, right? So we want to get that authorization before we actually need it. So right now we're going up to the $20 as an authorization. We have no plans to actually raise our assessment. Our latest projections, we just added a couple of months ago, over the next 5 years, we don't have any projections to raise that assessment beyond the $12 where it currently stands.
How big of an area of the assessment are you going to be able to raise or potentially raise? Because our active wells are north of the affected areas. The active wells, not the ones that are inactive. So how big of a scope of service are you talking about?
Well, so it's not related to service. Remember, we don't provide water to folks, right? So we're an agency that provides the coordination and brings in the funding. But when we raise an assessment, the assessment is raised on all of the water prescriptive pumping rights in the basin as a whole. So it's not raised, we're prohibited by law by raising it for one group and not the other. We have to do it across the board.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a curiosity question. Noted 1979 was the first time the contaminants were found. Do we know, was testing done before that, or was that the first time that any testing had been done? Do you have that history?
I don't know those exact details, but I would imagine that the technology came to a point where they could detect it at a certain level, came together with the Superfund program and the Safe Drinking Water program coming in. They started doing some additional testing that they wouldn't necessarily have been looking for those chemicals. And when the new program was initiated, that's when they started looking for specific chemicals. And I think that's how it happened.
And then just to be clear, we found the contaminants in 1979 and the agency wasn't formed until 1992.
Correct.
So it took 13 years to address the issue. Okay.
13 years, lots of studying.
I can imagine. Well, thank you very much. That was educational. A lot of the stuff I didn't realize, so I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you.
And once again, Mayor, council members, thank you for allowing us to present to you and your residents. I just got a joke on my phone from one of your residents saying I need to get back to the Staples Center. So I'm headed there now.
Thanks, Robert. Okay, that brings us to our consent calendar. I believe you have a announcement to make.
Yes, Mayor. The agenda and packet were reposted on July 10th. And with the following administrative changes, agenda item 12 ordinance number has been updated to ordinance 2077. Agenda item 14, following the posting of the agenda information was received that Mayor Boyer will be attending the league's annual conference, and recommendations were amended to designate Mayor Boyer as the alternate at the league's annual business meeting. And agenda item 15, consultant name corrected to CSG Consultants, Inc.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
So items on the consent calendar, items number 8 through 15 will be enacted by one motion without individual discussion unless a council member was requested that an item be pulled. And I understand, Michael, you want to pull item number 15?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then I'm looking for a motion.
Make a motion.
Are we
to
going to
approve.
pull it or just ask a question, council member?
I can ask a question.
Oh, okay.
If
Then-
that's okay with you, Mayor?
Yeah, then let's hold off on the motion.
Okay.
And Michael, go ahead and
So I guess then, Adam, this is gonna be directed to you. We're seeing more outsourcing of a lot of our services. And do we have any plans to do any, how should I say, community outreach and or surveys of the services provided, if they're satisfied or not with those services, and get the possible feedback?
Sure, that's a great question. Appreciate the chance. The CSG contract before you this evening is like several other contracts that we've had that are more supplemental assistance for staff as we've increased. In this specific case, I think we've had our highest 2 years of permit issuance ever. And so supplemental service for plan check review and additional inspectors as we go through staffing changes, and just supplemental help when we're fully staffed as well. And so As the council knows, we've embarked on a bunch of changes on our development side, from economic development updates to a new system. We're currently evaluating how we do customer service outreach, from something as simple as "How is your service today?" with a smiley face to providing us more details. I think one of the important aspects is to be able to make that targeted. So as part of our strategic plan, the city council has wisely talked about customer service and communication with our community. This is one of the areas that we're looking at across the board, not just in development services, but across all services. So looking at ways to incorporate, if you get an email, for example, when you sign up for a recreation class, will you get the option to say, was this easy to sign up? If you, hopefully in the future, when you sign up as a vendor for the city, how was that like those types of things. And also when signing up with an inspection. So we're going to be able to find ways to do that, not only here, but across the board. I think your question is a valid one, regardless if the services are offered in-house or external. We need a measurement tool to understand how it's received by the community. So that is our plan. It'll be something that will be coming forward, and hopefully just more just than in our development arena, but other areas of the city's operations as well.
What kind of time horizon would you apply to that?
Within the next year, I'd say we have a pretty good idea of how we're going to implement some of these areas. Hopefully one of the biggest challenges is outside of a Survey Monkey, which no one really has time to do, outside of trapping someone and they get a scanning barcode or something like the Village, where everyone's interested in what goes on there. Oftentimes we don't have a lot of time to answer 3 questions. So Survey Monkey would be hard, but in chatting with Marie today, on this and other areas, they have smart sheets that go out where we get responses to, and we also have other areas. All of you have been to airports and seen the happy or not with the smiley faces at hotels and retailers, and we can look at doing something similar here. So hopefully within the next 6 months, we'll have an idea as part of our communication outreach and strategy plan on how we plan on getting the customer feedback, both external and internal, and then ways that we can apply that. So more targeted at first and then more widely distributed second.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we have a motion by Karen and a second by David for the consent calendar. If everyone would please vote.
I will now conduct did you guys vote?
No, it didn't come up.
Should have. Open. Okay, is it open now?
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion by Councilmember Davis and seconded by Councilmember Friedenau. I will now conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Alves,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedenau,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Boyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Up next, unfinished business, item number 16, update regarding the disposition of antique streetlights. So Assistant Public Works Director, Michael Sled to report. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you for having me here, Mayor and Council. As you said, I'm here to present an update on the antique streetlight disposition. So just to briefly recap, since the lights were turned off in 2004 due to safety issues, multiple attempts have been made to bring the lights back online. Most recently, a Proposition 218 ballot measure was conducted to attempt to create an antique streetlight assessment district in a public hearing held on June 13th to count the ballots. A majority protest was present, and so the ballot measure did not pass, and City Council directed staff to begin developing plans to remove the lights. Removal is tentatively scheduled to start at the beginning of August 2023 and conservatively could be completed by the end of October 2023. The work would be performed by a portion of the city's facility maintenance division during regular hours to the extent practical without impacting normal operations. A test light was removed and it took less than an hour to perform the removal itself, but transport and storage will add time to that figure. The goal would be to remove at least 10 lights per week over a 10 to 12 week time span. The intent for the immediate term is to focus on taking down the lights and removing wiring where possible, but leave the concrete pedestals in place for the time being, other than where they may present a potential trip hazard. Lights would be stored at one of the city's secured yards. Assuming removal is completed, questions remain around disposition of the lights themselves, and there has been significant interest from the public in how they might be able to acquire them. As the personal property of the city, per Glendora Municipal Code, section 2.40.030, the city's purchasing designee may either sell the lights for the best price obtainable on the open market, sell the lights to the highest bidder at public sale, or exchange them for other property or credit on other property, or if they determine the lights have no salvage value, dispose of them as they deem advisable. With regard to the specific nature of the sale, the municipal code does not prescribe particulars for general city personal property, but does provide a potentially useful framework with regard to the public auction procedure of stolen, embezzled, lost, and abandoned property. For these items, notice is published at least once in a newspaper of general circulation within the city, at least 5 days prior to the time fixed for the auction, and must state the time and place for the auction and generally describe the property for sale. Once sale is complete, the city treasurer provides a statement of the proceeds and any expenses incurred, and the proceeds are deposited in the general fund. If no bids are offered, the property is again offered for sale, and then if not sold at the second auction, may be disposed of in the public interest as seen fit. In the event the city does auction the lights, some basic questions remain around the details of that, including the preferred methods and noticing, with some of those outlined here. Beyond that, though, there are additional questions around whether to sell all the lights or potentially retain some for city purposes. Depending on the condition of the lights in question, options could include leaving some in place and working to make them functional where they are already at city property, relocating some to particular city properties, or retaining some for replacement of other existing antique style lights on city property, such as at Finkbeiner or Big Tree Parks. That concludes my presentation. Now we're requesting direction on how to proceed with the disposition of the lights.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I will bring it back to council for conversation. Who wants to start this? David?
Thank you, Michael. In hearing the comments made tonight, did in fact hear them. It's disappointing that through the lengthy term of the process and the discovery of what to do leading up to the assessment vote, it's disappointing that so much misunderstanding occurred. I believe every effort was made to make the message the same message and to get it out to all the people. And certainly, I know a lot of time was spent addressing questions when they came in. So to still have misunderstanding is indeed disappointing. I was in one favor of, I like the lights, I think they're neat, but I think there needs to be some partnership, needed to be some partnership, and we didn't get that. Conversely, if the residents didn't want to restore them after 4 attempts, make them go away and not become a problem again. So I supported that downside of making them leave. I think in the process that we're looking at tonight, I would not be in favor of a blanket auction to the, for the lot to go to the highest bidder. I'm not looking at this as being a revenue source. Certainly as a collectible or a intrinsic value and emotional value to have one in one's yard or somewhere in the town, repurposed perhaps makes sense to me. But a sale, once they're assessed, if there's something to be recovered, just recover our costs, not try to make it a revenue source. But if they were indeed all able to be restored legitimately and reliably, I think that would have been the case. But the fact that the grant money we got doubled on the reality of the cost from all the experts made it a tough choice. So I would suggest and support we determine what that cost is fair for the ones that are liably responsible to be sold and sell them at public interest or, in a period of time, pick a date, a weekend, something, a week, whatever, and make that go, not drag it out forever and not burden staff in the city with this forever. So that's my recommendation.
Okay, thanks, David. Karen, next.
Thank you. The one option you had up there, Michael, about possibly relocating some of them to some place. I think it was on the next page. Yeah, remove but retain for replacement of other existing antique style lights. And or maybe some other location, as you mentioned, at the park or somewhere. I think, as Mr. Friedendahl said, finding a way to get rid of them without making it a extreme burden for staff, but then maybe having some that could be located somewhere that would be useful or helpful to the city. So.
Okay, thanks, Karen. Michael?
Well, for me, this has been a disappointing road of fighting for this for quite some time since I've been on council and getting the approval to go and find the money and getting the money and then having the voters say no. That's kind of a tough pill to take. But with that being said, you know, we have these lights, they're in different conditions. Some are about to fall over. We still don't have a clear understanding if we could even save these with repurposing with the heads. There's a lot of just unknowns. But to Karen's point about possibly relocating some of the ones that might be salvageable, it would be something that I would be somewhat in favor of. We have the $1.5 million from the state, but they all have to come out, be inspected, and that process would have to go on regardless. So I would be in favor of removing them and having an inspection process done, stored in a secure location, pick the best ones possible, and then have staff come up with some ideas, maybe come back on the 22nd if that's possible or not, to find out if maybe, you know, City Hall, someplace City Hall, Finkbine, or some other place, or up Glendora Avenue, either down to the train station and or up to Sierra Madre, but leave that up to staff to try to find out if that's at all possible as a last ditch. And if that's not possible, then sell this on the open market for the best possible price. That'd be kind of a last ditch effort. It's not something I really relish to do. However, we're left with very few options since we don't have a partner in the community that's most affected. Thank you, Mayor.
Just let me say a couple things first, because I think I want to land where I think Michael was landing and Karen said, but I think that the city has done an amazing job in trying to open this up. Partnership with the ad hoc group, we supported that group, supported the election, and spent a lot of time trying to figure out how much it was going to cost to fix, repair, keep, get new, maybe not get the ones we have now, because probably they're not even made. I suppose for any amount of money you could get what we have now, but we don't have any amount of money. So, and I think it's important to understand that this is the fourth time that the voters have had a chance to vote, and they said no. And it wasn't even close. And the mayor was not able to be a part of this to some extent. So I was in the chair, and I think I recalled that at the end of the last time we kind of talked about it, it was a consensus that if the vote didn't pass, we're like done with this. It's been going on for years. That doesn't mean we don't like them, that we're not in love with them. We don't have a romantic bone in our bodies to feel like, it's a Disneyland experience. I've lived here for 35 years and it's part of Glendora. It's just is. But at the end of the day, I really am very proud of what the council and our staff has done. With that said, I would agree that I think that and I was gonna ask staff this, but I don't want to put them into an awkward spot. Because I think I know what, they're gonna say, and what I was gonna ask them is, so what if we said we're just gonna keep them? And I think that Adam, and I'll give you a chance to respond, but I think that Adam will say something like, well, we don't know how safe they are. We know some of them have fallen. There's liability. And some of you are going to be shocked about this, but the city gets sued for all kinds of different things. I know that is breaking news. And nobody would sue us if a lamppost, a antique lamppost, fell and damaged their car. I just know, because there's such love for these antique streetlights. But the reality is we would get sued because they aren't able to stand there because they're so old. Adam, did I kind of land close to where you might respond on that?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm not sure I could say it as eloquent as that, but I will share, and I just, if it's okay with you, address a couple comments that were
Yeah.
made as well. I know the council likes to ask staff to address some of the public comment and for this item. So what you said is accurate. I think when we did the count and the inventory, there are missing lights now.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that during this process, one was hit by a car and knocked over at a 45. That one actually had a stronger base and hung on, and the city removed one of the lights across from Finkbeiner as a test case to see what was going on. And we opened up and there was all kinds of wiring that was mismatched and what have you. And some of those lights are in very poor shape. Some of them are at risk of falling over. That we've inspected all of them, or our consultant has. One of the comments made earlier was that, sometimes you have to hire experts to tell you what you don't know. And I will tell you that's exactly what we did in this case. We actually brought in 3 different people that do refurbishment for a living, who take them off one at a time. And they said, we can't even give you a cost because we don't know, because we'd have to take them all off and do it. We can assure you it would be a greater cost than what you could buy if they look like what they were. The lights in the village are over 20 years old, very little wear and tear, and most people don't know they're fiberglass. When the ad hoc committee came back with their recommendations, they had a cost estimate that they thought the public would support. And so the direction from council was provide us those options for the public. And we went into great detail and talked to a lot of experts about what new versus refurbished was in a time frame. And it was very evident that the cost of refurbishment was high, much higher than new. And the key important part here is that this isn't an Edison-owned light chain. These would be cities. The city would be responsible for maintaining these lights. The annual maintenance cost goes into the total amount that's allocated to the public to pay for these lights. It's prohibitively expensive if these are not refurbished like new to maintain them. And what happens if one gets damaged? It does happen. Accidents happen, trees fall, and trying to replace something like that is near impossible. And so as we looked at all those options, the council actually made a very clear decision at 3 straight public meetings that they would be removed if this wasn't approved this time around, that this was going to be the last time that we had this conversation. In fact, we had the public conversation multiple times, including with the ad hoc committee. One of the challenges is when you have a ballot statement, and we heard a lot the public doesn't know, is this council never took the approach that we were going to threaten the public, do this or else. That isn't the approach the council took. The council took the approach in the ballot statement simply saying, here's how much it costs to re-energize these lights, and this is the process that we're going to take. And so that is what the homeowners were asked to do in a non-threatening manner. To say that residents would have supported something that was refurbished is difficult to say, because one of the first ballot measures did just that and failed 22%. I think it's important to note that while it was 65% no, the city got 9 votes in that matter. Without the city's yes votes, it's really 72% no. It's not just a little bit, it's a lot of it in that case. So I appreciate your comments, Mayor Pro Tem. There are liabilities with old systems that are still attached to ungrounded lights. We know some of the wires are just in the ground, and we know there's some conduit, which is why we're going about this process as safely as possible. That's also why we volunteered during the process staff time to do it, to save the taxpayers money should they be refurbished. So I echo a lot of your statements about public outreach. I think the city's been very clear. We understand this is a very near and dear process to some people's hearts. which is why we're entertaining options before you this evening for ways for us to move forward.
So I'll just wrap up quickly. So as much as I would like to support just leaving them there, unlit, just leaving them there, I just don't think that's a wise choice for the management of our city in terms of risk. I just don't think that it is. What I would support is I think what the colleagues that I have said, and that is let's take a look at the existing lights, save those that we can, and if we can, place them in historic places such as the parks or City Hall or, somewhere. But I don't know that we even have a handle on the safety, the kind of quality of light that these lights are without somehow digging into them and either removing them or at least taking a look at them and say, okay, this one is a salvageable light. This one is just gone. And sometimes in life, we just have to take that old t-shirt that we love and say, it's been good for 40 years, but it's gone. I do have a couple of shirts like that. And my wife, if she was here, she would say just 2. But anyway, that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, appreciate it, Mano. Yeah, I was not able to be part of the conversation as we went through this process due to the fact that I own property, not in the lighting district, but adjacent to the lighting district. This has been an extremely passionate project for me as well, as it has been for some of the speakers here. The thing that Adam shared is very important that we understand. The lights have to be taken out no matter what we do, because they are unsafe. They don't look it because they're rotting from the inside out. But when you look at them on some of them, that wall that we're looking at, you can shove a pencil through because it's rotted out so bad already. The concrete bases that they're setting on, some of those are starting to crumble already. So none of that was going to be savable. And the cost involved in trying to renovate all of those historic streetlights would have been astronomical. And we have seen that and the residents have chosen, they didn't want to make that investment, and that's okay. But where we go from here is what's important. Just putting these up to bid to the highest bidder to anybody is not an acceptable solution to me. There was a rumor a number of years ago that I think most of us heard, that we were going to sell the antique streetlights to Disneyland. And that was never a conversation anywhere. And to this day, I have no intention on wanting to sell the antique lights to Disneyland. But I think, as most of you have talked about, I think the first step is going to be to remove the lights, which no matter what we did, those lights, even if we renovated them, they had to be removed to try to figure out what had to be done to renovate them. So I think the first step is to remove all of the lights and take a look and see what we have. We may have 10 or 12 that are salvageable. We may have 100 that are salvageable, but I guarantee you not all 200 are salvageable. But until we know what that looks like, I think it's important that we don't really make a whole lot of other decisions until we remove them and actually see what they're going to look like. Comment was made about leaving the bases in place for the time being. Is there a reason for that?
Just, it's going to take a lot longer to remove the bases than just removing the lights. The light was pretty quick to take out. Removing the base, it's going to, not only does it take longer, but it's disturbing the parkway. So we're probably going to want to go into restoring it. There's also, for a lot of the bases, there's probably questionable value. They're actually Many of them are in okay shape. The bigger issue with the base of the lights is actually all the anchor bolts inside them are all corroded. Like these ones, we didn't go in there and unscrew them. Like we had to cut the bolts off at the ground, like to get it off.
So,
So
excuse me, so you're saying, I was under the impression it was the concrete base you're gonna leave. You're gonna leave the
no, we're
casted
gonna leave the
base.
concrete base, just the.
What about
concrete
the
base.
casted base for the light? You take
No,
that
we
out?
would, yeah, that would all come out. That's a trip
Okay.
hazard otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, we take out the entire thing above the concrete base.
And do we know if those concrete bases are from 1918? Or were they ever recast at any time? Do we have any record of that?
Some are newer than others. You know, we opened up one and there was spliced wire in from like 45 years ago that was just tied in and no one knows how that worked. We'd have to ask water staff that maintained that 50 years ago. So I think there have been a lot of changes to the streetlights over a period of time that no one knows or remembers occurred. Not all those bases are from 1914.
When there used to, as you mentioned, there used to be 200 something lights. There's only
113.
112.
Yeah.
now.
113?
Yeah. There, we looked at 118 replacement lights, I think. There are 5 missing on bases that are not there anymore. There's one location where there should have been a light, but there's no base, but we have records there was. So there's a lot of that.
Do we have any idea how many are in ex-council members' backyards?
Oof. So we're missing 100. So there are some questionable ones in front yards in town if you want to go take a look at those, but
Okay, the bottom line is, folks, we're as passionate about this as you all are. We don't have, you know, when we had people talking about, well, the city should just pay for it. Well, guess what? The city has no money. It's your money. It's residents' money that we are always spending, no matter what we're spending is residents' money. And again, residents have made the decision that this is an investment. They're not willing to make it at this point. So we have to figure out what the next steps are. So is there any other comments?
No, I'll make a motion to have the city remove and inspect and report back to council on condition.
sure. If there's any locations, for example, that we think there may be an opportunity for, I know one of the challenges in the original project was just the scope. Putting new wiring in the ground is expensive, and that's what's required here across the board. So a much smaller segment, obviously, with the $1.5 million we have. The city's had some projects planned on Glendora Avenue to energize some of the lights on the trees that you've shown, and so there's some consistency there. So we'll do an inventory, try to get our best estimate of what some of the condition is on these lights. We're still talking about a couple month period, Michael, for removal of the lights.
Yes. Yeah, October was what we were looking
Okay.
to be done by.
So we'll be back before council then in that time frame, in the November, December timeframe.
Okay, we're currently trenching on South Glendora Avenue for the tree well lights.
Going to, if I'm looking at Moises, that project. Yes, that's still gonna happen.
Okay,
We're actually looking at both sides. So there is some consistency there, yes.
so just theoretically, if there was a decision made to, and there were enough lights to go south on Glendora Avenue down
Yes.
to the train station, would that trenching be suitable to accommodate the lights?
Yes.
We wouldn't need to make any changes immediately.
Come on up, Moises.
And
That's what you get for being interim public works director.
And
I don't want
also-
to do something twice.
And when would they have to know?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, the original, good evening, everybody. The original plan was to trench to provide some additional electrical boxes to light all of the trees south of Foothill all the way down to Ada, kind of extend what we currently do in the core of the village. As this discussion has kind of evolved, you know, we may need to pause our immediate plan to make sure that we give ourselves enough time to do it right so that we're precisely not ripping up the street twice. Coincidentally, we also have some first last mile improvements happening that we anticipate construction beginning in 2024 potentially. And so in terms of timing, I would love to do all of that project at the same time so that we're not trenching, repaving, tearing up the street all over again as part of the first last mile, so that we create a little bit of more consistency and less of an interruption to the traffic flow there.
So is it a major disruption if we were to pause that project?
No,
At this point?
not
Okay.
at all. In fact, I think it makes the most amount of sense at this point.
Okay, so Michael's made a motion. Do I have a second? Oh, we got a second. I guess I gotta move screens.
So we have a motion by Councilmember Elwes and a second by Councilmember Friedenau. I will now conduct an oral roll call vote. Councilmember Elwes?
Yes.
Councilmember Davis?
Yes.
Councilmember Friedenau?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson?
Yes.
Mayor Boyer?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay, thanks, everyone. On to item number 17, new business, approve the purchase of a shade systems cantilever structures for Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park from Miracle Playground Sales for $448,608. And management analyst Kelsey Fay. Hey, welcome, Kelsey.
Thank you and good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Tonight, I'm bringing you the item to approve the purchase of shade systems cantilever structures for the seating areas at Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park from Miracle Playground Sales. Okay, so a little bit of background. The funds that we're going to be using to purchase the shade structures are Measure A Annual Allocation Program funds from the Los Angeles County Regional Park and Open Space District. The Measure A funding is an annual parcel tax of 1.5 cents per square foot of improved property and includes both formula-based allocations to study areas and competitive grants that are open to public agencies, nonprofit organizations, and schools. Unlike Proposition A, Measure A does not have an expiration date. The amount of funds that we receive each year is based on a per capita formula that's based mostly on our population size. We will be purchasing the shade structures through 1GPA, a national nonprofit governmental purchasing cooperative, which allows public entities to take advantage of existing contracts to purchase the goods and services they need from local and national vendors. 1GPA contracts are approved and awarded by 1GPA's lead governmental entities and are available for use and benefit of all entities complying with their own state procurement laws and regulations. As a participating agency of 1GPA, Glendora can legally utilize 1GPA cooperative purchasing agreements. At this time, we also have an ongoing project at Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park for the artificial turf replacement that has the park closed until close to the end of the year. We're working on releasing a notice inviting bids for the installation of the shade structures once the shade system is purchased to allow time for the manufacturer to begin the engineering and the fabrication process. It's our intention to have this project completed at the same time as the turf project. On this slide, you'll see the current conditions of the seating areas at a few of the fields with little to no shade available. Spectators currently bring their own easy-ups and umbrellas to provide temporary shade which takes up space and blocks the view of the field for others. Installing shade structures provided by the city will provide a more comfortable and permanent solution that will eliminate the need for spectators to bring their own shade. On this slide, you'll see the products that we're proposing to purchase. So for fields 3, which is the already artificial turf soccer field, and then for field 5 football, we would have a single cantilever structure straight across the entire seating area. For fields 1, 2, 4, and 5 softball, we'd have wraparound cantilever structures. The cantilever structures were a priority to not have columns in the front that would decrease visibility for the fields. The fabric shade canopies are made from a high-density polyethylene material, which is very resistant to dirt and does not retain moisture. This means that it will not rot or mildew like canvas or other similar products, and it has low maintenance. Glendora is allocated a specific amount of money each year through the annual allocation program. Cities can choose to spend the money each year as it comes in, or they can save it for up to 5 years. Right now, we've saved the money for the last 5 years, totaling $920,131. When applying for this project, the budget narrative came out to $858,118, which is the grant amount that we were awarded. The total the total product cost is $448,608, which leaves us with $409,510 for installation. Utilizing the 1GPA cooperative agreement, we receive a 10% discount, which comes out to $41,375. So in conclusion, staff recommends that the city council adopt a CEQA notice of exemption and approve the purchase of the Shade Systems cantilever structures to install over the 6 seating areas at Louis Pompey Memorial Sports Park from Miracle Playground Sales in the amount of $448,608.19. This concludes my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Hey, thank you, Kelsey. Bring it back. Anybody have any questions? Oh, Mendel.
I have two questions. One, will we place signs once these are up, not to bring your own tents? I've been down there where almost there's been fistfights because row 1 puts a tent up and then row 3 claims they can't see. And I know that sounds really stupid, that you have shade, but don't bring your own tent. But is there any idea that we need to teach and educate adults not to bring their own tents, but use the shade that's there?
Yeah, that's definitely something we can look at, and we're going to be talking to Sports Council and make sure all the leagues know to let all of their people know. I'm sure we'll post on social media, and definitely as it evolves, once the structures are up, we'll reassess and see if we need to put signage or
Okay.
communicate more to the public.
Adam, I probably need to ask you this. So do we accrue or create a sinking fund for the time when these shades will wear out? Or are we just hoping there's going to be new grant funds available in 10 years when these are ripped and torn and done? Or do we have a sinking fund that we can then fill in the gap and replace it with?
I don't know if we would have something like that, but we do get the annual allocation each year. It's not always the same amount. So if we do need to replace certain parts of it, we could allocate some of that money back towards it. And the thing with the fabric that they use is pieces of it can be replaced and repaired. So if something does happen, whether it's from the wind or it gets damaged from graffiti or whatever, pieces of it can be taken out and just repaired. So
That's exactly what I was gonna say. This is, as Kelsey mentioned at the first part, this is actually an annual allocation that we get. And so we've set it aside. Nothing will be of this scope for the replacement of the actual steel structures themselves. So the cost will be minimal. 100% agree with what Ms. Fay just stated.
Yeah, I just don't want us in 10 years when the shades are gone and go, oh man, and John is gone, but his legacy lives on, and the money,
Not gone.
the money that, well, yeah, retired. The money that is allocated is now being used for, a pump track or something, and these shades are kind of forgotten. So sometimes when you're more specific about having a sinking fund for a certain thing, it like is there when you need it. So
Yeah, I wish I could tell you I wish we could tell you we had a reserve fund for everything, then the streets would all be paved, but that's just not the case. So
I know.
yeah, I think the best we can do is, we're fortunate enough, this is an annual allocation. This is a project I know we're really looking forward to. I know John's been talking about it for a long time.
Oh, I
and-
support it. I think.
And we're actually hoping to look at these trade structures in other parks as well to help share.
Thank you.
thank you.
Great job.
When you said 2 questions, I thought you were going to talk about color.
You know, I do have a question just because I'm curious. It shows the football field, and I blew this up to be able to read it right. The canopy is 165 feet long and 25 feet wide.
Mhm.
Those stands seem like they're a lot wider than 25 feet. Are they only 25 feet?
Then they'll bring their own shades for that.
No, we asked and the canopy will throw all the way to the front of the seating. Our football field was really made in a bad area because the sun goes, that way where we really can't, the canopy really doesn't, it will help, but it's still, you're gonna have sun in your face because you're looking into the sun as it goes across. But
Okay.
it will throw it all the way to the first seats.
Okay, so from the top row of seats to the bottom row of
Yes.
seats, that's only 25 feet?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, seems a
Yeah,
lot.
because the sun moves east to west and the seeds
Yeah,
face.
it's gonna
to
be
the
in your
south.
face the entire time. Okay, I appreciate it. That's the only question I had.
Terry?
Yep, Michael, go.
So Kelsey, thank you for your presentation. I didn't catch it. What's the warranty on this?
I will have to look and get back to you on that.
Excuse me?
20 and 10.
Okay,
20 on the frame, 10 on the fabric.
I have a question for John. This has evolved from the pit to what it is now, and the complete transformation, particularly with what we're gonna be doing with the turf and then this. What's the annual population that goes through Louis Pompey, if you were to guess? I mean, it gets utilized by.
Yeah, probably 75 to 100,000 people in a year. Come do it. Yeah, and the only place we would use easy ups for after this would be on the plaza. If they were doing something on the plaza where it's not, and they've asked for where we seat from the snack bar and everything, if we would do shade up there also.
So I have a little request. Once you're done with this, the shade and the turf and everything's done, can you bring back a before and after picture of when it was the dirt pit and what
I
it
don't
is
know if we
today?
have those photos. We're doing we're working with our social media and flying the drone over and in steps to show the progress of what we're doing right now. But once this one's done, field 3 is gonna need a new turf in a couple years.
Hint, hint.
Already working on it.
John, before you go away. Okay, well, we're talking about all of these great improvements and the number of people that use this. We've had the conversation and we've discovered that there was some sort of an agreement with Diamond Ridge to utilize some of the parking and a walkway that went from the Diamond Ridge parking lot down to the fields that has never been used.
We've
And-
used it. When we opened, we used to use it a lot, especially when the girls softball program had big tournaments. It was, the locks were broken and more, and as the years went on, it wasn't used as much. But at the start, probably the first 3-4 years, we would open it during big weekends when they were hosting tournaments. And then when we would host, we would push people that way that would go have lunch and stuff and shopping that were waiting around for other games.
Well, my question was because when there's larger events going on down there, that particular residential neighborhood gets bombarded with
Yes.
cars parked in front of people's homes. Is there any plan to start to utilize that Diamond Ridge parking?
Yeah,
lot
we
more?
can do that. That's just talking to our leagues. I don't even know what key it is now that on what lock is there. I know that the original lock is broken and then we chained it. I don't know if it's one of our locks or one of theirs, but we could do that, no problem.
I just think that would be, it'd be advantageous. The more that's going to be, more improvements we make, the more it's going to be used. And I
Yes.
think that parking
Yes,
lot.
we're getting ready for that.
Okay, appreciate it. Thanks. Okay, nope, nothing else. David?
You mentioned field 3. I snuck in when the gate was open. Somebody let it open. I went in, looked at the progress. And I did notice, I guess, field 3, as you mentioned, the existing field with turf, artificial turf. It's going to look real sad next to new turf. Is it going to get a tune-up in the presentation or which to me, a tune-up is a power broom and some infill, but
We just want to make sure you have your steps in tonight.
Yeah.
That's all.
Parks Department does that, and then once a year, we do have the company that put that in come and do a cleaning and they redistribute the infill there. But they do, I think it's in the contract also with our maintenance contract to go in and broom and that.
yeah.
And John, that's getting pretty close to its end of life, correct?
Correct. It's 8 years and the blades just don't pop back up. They start laying down, and that's when you can see now all the infield, it's pretty bad. It's
Yeah,
just been
most
used.
turf like that tends about its time with
Yes.
that kind of a
Yeah,
use.
they
so
told
that's
us
good.
8 to 10 years.
Okay. And the question I had, and I'm sure my colleague here is going to think the same thing, so we'll do it together. What's the water cooler guess on what colors you're going to pick?
For
The poles and the
Dave, I
cover?
think we're going with a forest green. Right?
Evergreen?
Yeah.
I like that color. That was kind of one of my choices. On,
And-
yeah.
Was looking at
and
your
just so
color
you know,
chart and was
John,
excited.
the replacement field or Kelsey is about 250 grand. Is that right? For field three? Is it
300 and
5 or 600,000? Sorry.
Yeah, I think 300 and something. Yeah.
Wow.
What if we went right now with, because they're on site and everything, that they would already have been mobilized.
Right. So it's something that we are looking at.
Okay, anything else? Okay, no? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
I made one a minute ago, but then it disappeared off the screen. So I'll make a motion that we approve this.
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Councilmember Davis, a second from Councilmember Friedel. I'll now open it for oral roll call vote. Councilmember Alowis,
Yes.
Councilmember Davis,
Yes.
Councilmember Friedel,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Thompson,
Yes.
Mayor Boyer.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. It brings us to the end of our meeting. Any additional comments? Mendel?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to, if I can get a second, I don't know, if I will, but, the city is often asked to, reflect a statement, of our disdain for certain things. And I know back in October of, 2020 that Karen and I made a motion and seconded to respond to a very hateful experience that occurred on a Zoom call where a racial slur was made more than once. And the council stood very firm that that level of hate should not occur. And as the years have evolved, I would like to inquire of staff if they could take another look at a policy against hate. And I hate to frame it that way. And I'm sure that Bill could use just a better term. But sometimes there's hate that's in this world, and the city, the council needs to respond to that. And we're often asked to do that. And I don't know that we have a clear policy to do that. I have read the statement that was made back to the incident that I earlier just referred to, and it was very well done. But I would like to ask staff if they could, and I don't want to create more work for them than we already do, but if it's possible to have that to noodle on by August the 22nd. I'm looking at, Adam, and again, I this is not a pressing need per se, but I think that, as you well know, we are asked often to respond to certain groups that want us to say something, and I think that we need to have a collective statement to say. So
Yeah.
that's what I would like to have the council.
If I may just quickly, I think Mayor Pro Tem, you're absolutely correct. Our current policy for proclamations, for example, include the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and their review of a request that comes in. And it seems in today, especially in light a couple months ago of the news that hate crimes, it's in the news cycle again, have gone up year over year. And whether you use a fiscal year or a calendar year, the fact remains that we get more and more requests So several local cities in the San Gabriel Valley have taken on a hate resolution. Most recently, there was a conversation, I believe, in Huntington Beach. Are just for the sake of understanding, it sounds like sort of the conversation centers around, does the city want to have an official statement that when these requests come in that we point to and say, here is the city's stance on these areas in sort of a wide ranging fashion? Is that a fair assessment?
Correct.
Okay, so pending the outcome, if it's okay with the council, we would work then with the mayor pro tem as typical in these types of proclamation type resolution requests. I'm asking if that's the case.
I mean, I think it's important that we all have a voice in this.
Okay.
But so this is not just about the current mayor pro tem, but I think that we need one. I know that, you know, Huntington Beach has one. I know that Claremont has one, and you know, other cities have them. And I just think that it would be good to take a look at ours and either clean it up, kind of refresh it, or bring some more energy to it. And you know, there was an article in the Trib about a group that has asked for a statement, and you know, they went out to, I think, 50 cities. And you know, and I just think that we need to have something that collectively that we can land on.
Okay.
Mendel, are you looking for a policy? Because then, I mean, a policy of how to issue and what to issue?
Or is it more of a
proclamation?
statement, proclamation?
I'm thinking more of a statement.
Okay.
I think the issue is that, you know, and I hate to say this, but it's almost like in today's world, every day's a holiday. Okay, there's, you know, whatever is going on, it's ice cream day or donut day or whatever. And we have so many requests to respond to each one of those requests can be burdensome. So the idea of us having a general statement that we can state that the city of Glendora, you know, feels a certain way. The fact of being anti-hate seems like a silly conversation to have to say out loud, but in today's world, it's necessary to do that. And so, you know, I support the request of that, and I would like to move forward with that conversation.
No, I agree. I think that is unfortunate is that we have to publicly say that we do, because there is constantly all types of hate, whether it's on social media, whether it's face to face, or whatever it may be. So I think that is warranted for us to be able to collectively say that that's not appropriate and it's not acceptable.
So again, will this be a proclamation or a policy and a proclamation to assist that?
Well,
The
we don't know
statement.
yet. It would be a conversation that we would have in August, but for me, I would think that it would be a statement that we'd be able to point to, that this is what the city of Glendora believes.
Right. So would that policy be embedded, the statement be embedded in the policy, so it stays the same as opposed to a one-off, because we've done in the past, but it's not part of a policy.
Yes,
I'm not sure it has to be a policy. I mean,
No.
if you pass something formal,
Against hate, period.
I understand.
yeah, if you pass a
But-
resolution,
I mean,
I
I don't
understand that. but
know
what
how
I'm
much
trying to
more
say
we
is-
need to.
What I'm trying to say though is this going to get changed from year to year or request by request? What I'm trying to say is it going to be standardized.
I think that would be the conversation on the dais before we get into too much of a discussion
Sure.
here.
Um,
All right, I think we got a first and a second, which is what we need. If it's okay with the council, we'll work with the mayor pro tem is typical in these types of things. Is that okay with the council? All right, perfect. Thank you very much.
any additional comments
No,
or
that's it.
nothing? Okay, with that, I would like to adjourn our meeting tonight at 8:53 in memory of Tom Hill.